Good afternoon. I am your host, Cindy Welch from the Southwest Florida Library Network. Thank you for joining us for Coronavirus, Hoaxes, Fear, and Truth, How Libraries Can Help. Our presenter today is Dr. Stephanie Rollins. She is a research and writing specialist at the Air University Press at Maxwell Air Force Base and an adjunct professor for the University of Alabama. She teaches digital reference, collection development, and organization of information, among other courses. Stephanie serves on both regional and state library committees, and she has 23 years of experience in academic and special libraries. She holds a BA from Auburn University, a master's degree in library service, and a doctorate in public administration, both from the University of Alabama.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and Deb. Also, thank you for being here. Thank you for your help today. Before we get started, just to kind of continue the conversation, how are you guys doing? How are you feeling? I'm really concerned about you in Florida. I'm all the way down in Alabama, near Montgomery, and I just want to know, how are you guys doing? And I'm just going to look at the chat box while we do this. So let me just tell you a little bit about how I try to handle things. I can get very overwhelmed. I'm an emotional person. I'm very empathetic. And so one of the best ways that I know how to fight my fear is to look at the facts. And the best way to look at those facts, to evaluate them, to make sure that things are true. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. Oh, Leslie, I'm so sorry. I hope that she's going to be okay. Yeah, everybody's struggling right now. It's kind of a crazy time, and I'm wishing everybody stays safe and healthy. Um, and again, one of the ways that I really wanted to do something outside of myself to help, and so one of the things I thought was, well, what's out there for people on coronavirus? And at the end, I'm going to tell you a bunch of training that's recorded and some new things that have come up that you can attend. So there is some training out there, but I didn't see anything for training in Florida. So I contacted Lily and said, hey, what can we do? What can I put together for people so they don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of offering services or information or sifting through the facts? What can I do to help? And so came up with this presentation. I updated a little bit each time based on the numbers and the new things that I find. And so hopefully this is going to be helpful to you. And it's going to ease your fears a little bit. Like I said, the best way I know to fight my fears is with facts. And so we're going to figure out how we can get those facts to you. So here's the formal agenda. We're going to look at what is coronavirus, just a very quick review. I think we pretty much know what it is right now. What are the current statistics? I've got some at the Florida level as well, but also thinking about statistics, how to put them into perspective. What hoaxes exist regarding coronavirus. There's some automated hoax and misleading information kind of to help you sift through some of the very best ones that are out there. And then we're going to look at, okay, why should we focus on this? Why us? What's our role here? We're going to look at some basic terminology about fact checking of fake news and verification. A lot of this is not new to us. Some different strategies. I've got 5. You can pick whichever one works best for you about verifying current information. Again, this is not new. We've done this our entire careers in terms of sifting through information. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of news sites that I feel like you can trust. Of course, there's more out there, but again, there's just a few I want to talk to you about. How can we prepare? It's kind of caught a lot of us, especially I think in Alabama. Our response time has been a little bit slower than it needed to be. But if you're not prepared, what can you do to prepare now? I saw some of you are still open. And what are some good examples of presenting information? And then on top of that, not just presenting information, I've seen a ton of great sites out there about, hey, this is what coronavirus is, this is where you can get help. But how do you also offer services virtually during this time? This is not new. We've always offered virtual services. So it's more of a reminder of what we can do to help people during this time. And then throughout, I'm going to show you kind of what the most trusted resources that are out there throughout this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. I know you guys know what the coronavirus is, but just to be on the same page, if you need a really good handout, this is from the CDC. I have a couple of extra handouts in here just so you can see how colorful, how easy to read they are, how simple they are. There's not a lot of medical jargon. So if you wanted to share something with your patrons and you only wanted to share a couple of things so you don't overwhelm them as well, on their Facebook page or on your Twitter, on your blog, whatever it might be. And yes, I forgot to tell you guys, you will get a copy of these handouts. You'll get a copy of the presentation in a couple of days. If not, I'll have my email at the end, and you can feel free to contact me with that or any other questions you might have. While we're on the subject of that, if you guys would please take out a sheet of paper, just keep it to the side. We're going to have a really quick exercise later. And also, just a quick note: I'm a doctor of public administration, but not a medical doctor or a psychologist. So the things I'm going to share with you about coping and medicine, I'm not an expert. So if you need help with either of those things, please see a doctor or talk to a psychologist. But I did want to share the information. I do feel like I'm an expert at finding information and gathering it and hopefully presenting it to you. So I am an expert in that. So please. Keep that in mind when I talk to you about the ways that I cope. This is just something that was helpful to me, and I'm hoping that it will help ease your fears. Okay, so coronavirus, it's actually a series of different viruses. In 2003, we had one called SARS. You guys might remember that. So this is not necessarily brand new, but what's brand new about it is how fast that it spreads. It's super infectious. It's a respiratory disease, has fever, cough, shortness of breath. I don't know about you guys in Florida, but where I am, we have tons of pollen. So, sometimes you think you might be sick, and it's actually allergies. So if you're ever in doubt, call your doctor ahead. Don't just show up. Call your doctor. And there's also a public health line for the state of Florida here on this PowerPoint. But again, there's lots of things we can do to prevent it. We can wash our hands. We can stay home, and there's different things like that. This is a really good video that is super short, about 4 minutes. She's very calm. She's a doctor. She explains what it is. So if you need something to send to people, I encourage you to watch this. I really got a quick understanding of what COVID-19 was, and it wasn't intimidating. Again, just some colorful handouts for you guys. Again, if you wanted to share them with your patrons, what causes, what are some of the symptoms of COVID-19, fever, cough, shortness of breath, and you can spread it definitely by, avoiding close contact with people that are at risk. Don't touch your face. It's really hard to do that, by the way. Wash your hands, wipe down surfaces. Those are the best ways that you can prevent it. So just some really quick, some terminology I wanted to go through with you, and I keep finding new terminology as we go along, but I just want to share this with you real quick in case you came across these terms and you weren't sure what they were. So community spread or community transmission is when people are infected without any knowledge or of contact with someone who has the same infection. So we've seen that in the news lately, community spread, community spread. Contact tracing, that is a process that begins with identifying everyone with a person diagnosed with a given illness has been in contact. Those contacts are notified that they're at risk. For instance, like a doctor's office, a school, and they may be quarantined. The people that are contacted may be asked to quarantine if they experience symptoms, and they're likely to be tested. Containment, that's what our ultimate goal right now is, to limit the spread of the illness, because right now there is no vaccine. They're working on one. There is nothing to treat it. Again, they're working on that. And so it's done using public health intervention, isolating people who are ill, tracking down using that contact tracing, and possibly placing people under quarantine. Also, shelter in place, staying at home, and we'll talk a little bit about that. An epidemic is a disease outbreak in a community or region. So we're definitely experiencing that right now. Flattening the curve. If you look over here at the bottom right, there is a very simple explanation of flattening the curve, and this is what we're hoping to do. It's not working so well in New York or Italy, but what the hope is that by doing these preventative measures, that we can stop the rate of COVID-19 and also not overwhelm the healthcare system capacity. So if you look at this green mound, we're hoping that with protective measures that we can not overwhelm the health departments and having the number of beds and different things like that. So staying at home is very important. Incubation period, that's the period of time between exposure to an infection and when symptoms begin. Isolation is just what it sounds like. You separate yourself. You maintain really good hygiene. Wash, separate towels. You stay in a separate room in the house. Different things like that. Mitigation, again, is referring to the steps taken to limit the impact of an illness. And so things like hand washing, not touching your face, staying away from people that are sick, avoiding large gatherings, different things like that. Pandemic. There's some qualifications at the World Health Organization when they determine whether something is not a pandemic or not. But basically, it's a disease outbreak affecting large populations, a whole region, country, or continent. So right now, it's affecting the world. Okay, it looks like Deb got locked out. Cindy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let's see what we can do about
Okay.
that. Please continue, and I'll look on my end. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Sorry about that, you guys. So presumptive positive test, it's a positive test for the virus, basically. And it's considered presumptive until the result is confirmed by the CDC. So you're kind of confirmed to be infected. Quarantine is when you separate out from you're separate and restricts the movement of people who have a contagious disease or were exposed to see if they become sick. And a lot of people, even if they haven't been exposed to the disease, they're kind of doing a voluntary quarantine. They're staying at home with their families, not going out, different things like that. SARS-CoV-2, sometimes you'll see this instead of COVID-19, or you'll see novel coronavirus, and it's short for severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. That's the official name for the virus. Social distancing, we know what that is. You're trying to stay at least 6 feet away from people because you don't want to risk breathing in the droplets that are introduced when a person coughs or sneezes. And so some of the social distancing things that we've done, you've closed your libraries to the public, but you're still working. I might be working from home. I feel so blessed and lucky that I have a job where I can work from home. And there's so many people that do not have those opportunities. It's closing schools, taking online classes, and obviously canceling large meetings. And then virus is the smallest of infectious microbes, and it's smaller than bacteria or fungi. And it's just a piece of genetic material. And so that's what's being passed around right now. They can't survive without a living cell in which to reproduce. So if we stay away from this, hopefully it won't reproduce. So if that happens, eventually the host cell dies. And then shelter in place, stay at home. I just want to post something really quickly in the chat box. This is some information about what to do when you're shelter in place or quarantine. And it's also got some of the different cities. I think you guys might have heard that Virginia is now a shelter in place, which is confusing to us in Florida and Alabama because when we hear shelter in place, we're thinking tornado or hurricane, right? So what they're trying to say is stay at home, stay safe. Don't go out except for essential things like the doctor or the grocery store. And also, I skipped over, but non-essential businesses, there are states that are saying anything that's not a non-essential business, which is things like bars, restaurants, massage parlors, anything that's a service industry just about is going to be closed. And we had that issued in Alabama on Friday. But Virginia is actually under a stay-at-home order. So it's the same thing. You can still go to the doctor or the grocery store. People are kind of worried about something called lockdown, and I have not seen that yet in the United States, but I have seen it in some of the other foreign countries where you can't really go out of your house very much at all. And I don't think that's going to happen in the United States, but it is possible in other countries. So those are some of the terms that you might want to be familiar with, just so you can sound like you know what you're talking about. Another term that you may be familiar with if you work near a Air Force base, you'll see that they have what's called HPCon measures, and these are similar to the measures when you think about terrorism, but they're for health. And so right now at our Air Force Base, I work on an Air Force Base, we're under HPCon Charlie, which means it's a substantial problem for health, high morbidity, epidemic, or contamination. And they also have limited to only having essential employees, which is my husband. So he's out there. He's still interacting with people, which worries me. Just like people, all the other people out there that are still working with the public that have to because they're essential, nurses, different things like that. So this is kind of some of the recommendations. They haven't closed the bases, but if you're near a military base, again, some terminology you might want to know, or if you hear it on the news, that's just something you may want to know. So I just updated this. This is as of like last night about 6 p.m. Donald Trump had issued a 15 days to slow the spread. Obviously, he's extended that until the 30th of April, and it's in line with the same guidelines at the CDC. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys saw that that this had been extended. So if we are under a quarantine or stay at home, these are just some things to keep in mind. They say you don't have to clear out the grocery store, which I think there's a lot of psychology and panic. I've read a couple articles on it, but really the experts say you only need a 14-day supply per person. You want to have your prescriptions, you want to have your comfort foods, some people chocolate, some people it's wine, a first aid kit. If your area doesn't have good water, our tap water is fine, but if it doesn't, you may want to stock up water for people. Have a copy of your health record, have something to do. I've seen a lot of people posting on Facebook that they're playing board games, they're going out for a walk. Have a plan for your pets. What are you going to do if your animal gets sick? Is your vet still open? Are you going to have to go to an emergency vet? And then prepare for your family member care. I have older parents. A lot of us do. So think about things like that. And these are not just tips for right now. These are things I think we should always have in mind. Whether it's a natural disaster, whatever it might be, we want to be prepared and we want to take care of our families. And if you do have questions about food, again, some of the websites I'm going to show you, they've answered every single question I've had from, hey, I got a package in the mail, or I'm going to the grocery store. The FDA, the CDC, the WHO, they all have FAQs. And this is just an example because I was wondering about takeout food. And pretty much takeout food, it's a very small chance that you would get it. If somebody coughed in your food or something, it's going to be for worst case scenario, it's going to be destroyed in your stomach. So just different things about thinking about that. So it does answer a lot of the different questions that I had, and it's comforting to me to know the answers to those questions, whatever they might be. Okay, so I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed, but the numbers are increasing, and this was as of last night. I'm going to go live and show you some statistics, and then we're going to talk about putting perspective on statistics. I'm not a math whiz. My husband is an engineer, and so I talked to him about a lot of these statistics, and he said, you really do have to put it in perspective. He said, look at the total recovered compared to the total deaths. No, we don't want anybody to die. I'm not saying that, but you have to put your numbers in perspective. So this is, as of last night, the worldwide statistics. And I want to show you this live because it's an interactive map. And there's a couple other different maps that I found yesterday that I wanted to show you. This is for the US. 189,510 confirmed, 4,000 deaths, and this is as of last night. It's gone up a little bit this morning, and total recovered 7,096. And the thing to keep in mind about recovered is not everybody reports that they're fully recovered, right? Once you're healthy, you're like, shoo, I don't want to talk about it anymore. The other thing is it takes 2 weeks for the COVID-19 to fully develop, and then sometimes 4 to 6 weeks to fully recover. So we're not seeing the total statistics of people recovered at this time. So keep that in mind when you start to feel overwhelmed with some of the numbers. And then for Florida, this is put out by the Florida Department of Health. And so what I want to do, I'm going to share my screen. I want to go live and share a lot of the statistics with you very quickly. And give me just a second. I appreciate your patience. Might be a little bit of a lag here. Okay, so this is current. So you see that the numbers went up just a little bit for the world. you can actually click on different countries, and you can see that North America is pretty heavily hit right now. You can also look at each of the different areas over here on the right. And for Florida, what I really like what they did, not I don't like the numbers, but I really like what they did in terms of displaying their data. If you would, first person that types in, I'll show you your county, because you can actually look at the county level and it does give you some demographics. Multiple people typing. Broward. Okay, yeah, and I think that was one of the hardest hit. So if you know where Broward is on the map, you can actually click on it here. But you can also scroll over here to the right and you'll see Broward is listed. So you can see there's 1,232 cases. This is updated at 11:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. daily. But what you can see here is the total number of cases, how many residents, residents not in Florida, the age range. I have read, and I need to support it with some more evidence, that men are harder hit with this than women. And looks like there's been 12 deaths and 131 hospitalizations. So if you look at the county level, you could underestimate how bad things are. On the other hand, it could give you a slight bit of peace that it's not, 5,000 people in your county. So again, it's looking at percentages, it's looking at the total number recovered, and trying to put this. Yes, Heather, this is available to the public. That link right there on the PowerPoint, it's on the Florida Department of Health site. Also, the other map that I showed you is from Johns Hopkins University. Yeah, I can check Lee real quick. Yep. So we can go over here to Lee. Let me see if I can also, I'll post this in the chat box for you real quick. And it's also going to be with the slides, but just in case you want to look at it now or you want to share it with somebody right away. So Lee County, 212 total cases. Again, the age range, conditions and cares, deaths 8, hospitalizations 45. So some staggering numbers. You can also look at the World Health Organization. They've got situation reports every day. This is from yesterday. And they've also got, like I said, fantastic media resources. They've got a Q&A, they've got a Mythbusters, also the CDC. They've also got very simple, I mean, I really like it. I do have a background in medical librarianship at a short stint, so I understand a lot of medical terms, but I just think it's really fantastic how simple things are for people, and they can get the information they need and start protecting themselves. Again, they've got a, scroll down a little bit, they've got a report here. They've also got a map, different things here. Also, Bing has a good map too. So again, all this is open for the public. Yes, Johns Hopkins COVID-19. Actually, let me just share that link with you real quick. I can just give it to you. And the cool thing about this map is you can actually zoom in. And again, same kind of thing. You can look at your county. This is going crazy on you, I'm sure. But you can look at, move the map around. You can look at Florida. So again, same kind of thing. Bing also has a map, and you can actually type in your location. You can geolocate. So this is for me in Alabama. So we have 12 cases, nobody recovered and nobody died, but again, the data is still coming in. Okay, let's see what else. So that's on Bing. So it's just kind of another way of looking at the data. Another one I want to show you is, this is just something interesting, and I'm just going to take about 50 seconds, I promise. This is from Tektronic, and people are supposed to be staying home and different things like that. And what's happening is, this is just this week, the New York governor said everybody should stay home. Well, if you look, they took, and they did this with Florida beaches too. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but what they did, and I'm not sure if this is going to work. Okay, it couldn't be played. You can come back to this site and look at it. But what it showed was that people are still moving around. They are still, from their cell phones, you can see kind of where they've gone. And it's just kind kind of scary, but again, it just shows you kind of the spread of what's happening. Another one I want to share with you really quickly is this. This is the Kaiser Family Foundation, and it gives some statistics as well, some cases and death trends data. But what I like about this is a little bit different is they do adapted social measuring, distancing measurings by different states. So you can see by different states who has a stay-at-home order, and that's in blue. Here's the little guide down here. But if you look, they've also got who has more mandatory quarantine, and Florida should light up. Yep, they've got a quarantine for travelers. Um, you know, what also was non-essential business closures. I'm going to see if they finally updated Alabama and Georgia. So non-essential retail businesses are closed. So it just kind of gives you information of what states are doing. Another one I want to show you. Oh, let's see. Sorry, there's one site that didn't come up. Let me get that real quick. Um, this is Worldometer. It's a little bit different. Again, a different kind of take on the statistics. It's more of a numbers based, so it tells you kind of how many more cases since the day before. And what I like is that it cites its sources, which is fantastic because a lot of places don't cite where they're getting their stats from. Let's see, there's one more thing I wanted to show you real quick. Okay, so this is a little bit different. This is and I'll paste this in the chat box. I think it's also in my slides, but just in case. This is what they've done here, and they say that the spread is slowing a little bit because this is something they have done by, it's a map, it's a visualization of seasonal illness linked to fever. So it's kind of like a fever map. So it may be something that would interest you to look at. It's so it's trying to say that, you know, that if you look at the different atypical illnesses that, of course, you know, there's some areas where it's high, but you can see somewhere areas where it's mild and low. For Alabama, you know, of course, higher in the bigger cities, but you can kind of see that illness trend decreased by 9.5%. 14%, and that's just determined kind of by looking at fevers and different things. Yeah, just one second. Let me share the KFF map. Just give me a second. Here we go. Sorry, I have so many things I want to show you. Try to keep up here with the chat with you too. Okay, so another thing I wanted to show you, I showed you Worldometer, again, a different way to display data. And then another one that was interesting and kind of a little bit overwhelming to me, let me see if I can get that one back up, is this is done projecting how many hospital beds and how many deaths there'll be from COVID-19. So you can look at the United States of America, the number of beds needed, which they're working on that as we speak. But they're also saying that, hey, we're not going to see peak numbers until a couple weeks from now. Oh, okay. Thank you, Adacia. The governor has asked all of you guys to shelter in place, or basically stay at home is what that means, except for, you know, very essential tasks. Thank you for sharing that. I'll make sure to update that for the next time. But for this, you can also look at the different states. So although it's overwhelming for the entire United States of America, you know, they look at how many ventilators there are. You can also look at specific states. So if we go down to Florida, and let me share this with you in the chat. And I thought that Florida was kind of their own counties were doing their own thing kind of thing for right now. So it's interesting that the governor finally said something 10 minutes ago. Wow. Okay. So this is for Florida. And so it's not a stay-at-home order not implemented. That'll change. Non-essential, I think that was done by county. And travel severely limited. I think that was also done. So again, not everybody's as up to date, but they're saying that there's not going to be a bed shortage, but there might be an ICU bed shortage. Um, they need about 2,090 ventilators. They're predicting. This is predicting the deaths per day, and you can look at it over time. Again, don't get overwhelmed with the statistics because you do have to put it in perspective, and I want to talk about that for just 1 second. So depending on how the data is displayed, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so the way that graphics are provided can promote definitely different perspectives. So which one of these to you guys causes more alarm? This one or this one that looks like the chicken pox, right? So put that in perspective. I mean, they're trying to display the data the best way that they can, but put that in perspective and know that not all the data is available right now. And then to look at this map. This is done by percentages. So sometimes, maps can underestimate the severity. So somewhere in the middle is probably the right answer. But think about the data, put it in perspective. So this is, 100 cases. But if you look at it, it can appear quite shocking. So you could, just sometimes sensationalism is important to get people's attention, but be sure to put these numbers in perspective and not panic and, think about how things are presented. Another thing I wanted to show you is that both Facebook has a fantastic coronavirus. They list just very basic facts. So whenever you log on to Facebook, you can get access to this. And they also provide a little bit about the news, just a few quick things. And then, they also list the recognized health organizations for your area. So for me, this is Elmore County. I'm in Elmore County following these things. Also, they have in Google, this is a fantastic partnership. Whenever you do a search in Google, say for coronavirus, should catch up in just a second. It's going to give you a little bit of news, symptoms, prevention, treatments, and you'll see that everything is linked to the local Department of Health, the CDC, local and national resources. So some fantastic information. So that's just how you can find statistics, a little bit of news, some sites that I trust. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to go back just a minute. And I'll be right back. Okay, another thing I wanted to share with you, I just discovered this yesterday. This is a free app. It's called Newsbreak, and it will also do real-time updates of coronavirus. It'll give you some news in your area, and it geolocates. But so for me, what I had to do was actually set it to Florida, and so I did this based on Bonita Springs, Florida. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, all right. It could just be the connection. Not sure. Okay, so this is Newsbreak, and it's an app. It's free. You could get it on Google Play, or you can get it on the iTunes store. Not iTunes. I'm sorry, the Apple Store, and it's free, and it gives you real-time updates, and also gives a little bit of news. You can see that there were 2 men that were detained following a robbery near Bonita Springs McDonald's. So it also gives you a little specific to your area local news, which is kind of nice. But also has information on the coronavirus that you can look at. This is that weather map I showed you kind of based on the fever. These are the situation reports. So again, these are some of the sites you can go to that I think are really great, trustworthy for kind of information on the disease itself, statistics. Again, I didn't show you the Food and Drug Administration, but they've got some fantastic Q&As. Also, the Google, Facebook, Bing, they're all doing a great job of providing, actual information that's not crazy, right? They're actually linking to the credible sites. So those are some of the sites that are kind of trusted. So very quickly, because one of the best things you can do about fighting fear is to name it. What are some of the fears you have about COVID-19? And I'm going to share mine with you. And some of mine aren't logical, but you're allowed to feel how you feel. That's fine. You're allowed to feel that way. But what were some of the fears that you have? Definitely, I have a grandmother who's 93 who has a underlying condition, a chronic condition, and she's still going to the grocery store. So she's very independent. So we're trying to figure out if we can get, if we get food delivered, if she would stay home. My parents are older. Yes, losing my job definitely, or definitely some fears that your pets would be take. Yeah, absolutely. I've got three babies too, puppies, and I would be so worried if something happened to them as well. Yes, economics. Yes, concerns about contamination, definitely. Online schooling, yes, all those things. So these are some of mine, that we're going to be on lockdown, right? That the troops are going to come out and we can't even go outside, which I know is illogical, especially with my background for the military. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a second. That's not going to happen. That we're going to run out of food. The FDA says this is one of the things I checked on, that we're not going to run out of food. That we are going to, it's just a shortage right now in terms of stocking. It's not, we're not out of food. And of course, I've watched The Walking Dead, and I know that's illogical, but I have that in the back of my head. And then, of course, me getting sick, my family, my friends, my coworkers, my library friends in Florida. Those are things that I'm worried about. So we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do to help kind of mitigate. Remember, we used mitigate in our terminology earlier. So some of the things that you can do. Um, you can stay away from up to the minute updates, right? If you have an app on your phone that gives you notifications every 5 minutes about the numbers, that's something that maybe you should check on once a day. For me, like I said in the beginning, knowing the facts is the best way. That's how I can reassure myself. I can look at the numbers while putting them in perspective. I can look at the news. I can evaluate it. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Create a new routine. You're still allowed to go outside. Get lost in a book. I mean, that's what started this whole journey for me as a librarian. This is my grandson in this picture. I've always heard the phrase, don't forget to stop and smell the flowers. So that's what he's doing. He's stopping and smelling the flowers. Occupy your mind with hobbies. Go to all these webinars, learn something new, great courses. If you live alone, call or text somebody. And if you have severe anxiety, call a specialist. And I've got something free I'm going to show you in a little bit that you can do that with. The challenge, like I agree with Lynn Bufka, is trying to determine which information is accurate. What do we have? We have all these numbers, but are they accurate? So again, put things in perspective. Stick with a few sources you trust, and I'm going to show you what I look at. You limit the frequency of your updates. Don't be on social media all the time. Also, Karen, I've got some things later about how to talk to kids, some websites about how to talk to kids. So hold on there. I'll show those to you. Practice, some little bit self-discipline. I don't have the news on the TV all day. I get newsletter updates from a few trusted news sources. I look when I'm trying to prepare for you guys to see if there's anything new that's developed. But I don't have the news on all the time, and I think that's part of the reason I haven't gone to, panic level red for me at least. Name your fears. So we've done that already. We can think about how to put those in perspective. Seek support, but don't talk to somebody who's just going to get you riled up even more. Talk to somebody who has perspective. Pay attention to your basic needs. Take care of yourself. Get enough sleep. Eating right. I'm not so good at that. I've eaten a lot of stuff at home recently, but I'm trying to do better. Think about physical activity. There's all kinds of free YouTube mindfulness or yoga, exercise for free. All the library community is putting up stuff for free in terms of resources and books and different things like that. The key is to work towards understanding your fears and trying to put them in perspective so they don't kind of keep you going down the rabbit hole. So those are some of the things you can think of. You want to live your healthiest life that you can during these times, because that's also going to prevent you from getting the coronavirus if you stay healthy to begin with. Center your routine and awareness. So again, you can keep your mind from kind of wandering down to the worst case scenario, right? So this is an exercise. Remember, I asked you to take out a sheet of paper. I want you to draw a line down the middle. And we've done a little bit of this already, so it's not going to come from out of nowhere. But on one side, put what you can control and draw a line under it. And on the other side, put things I can't control and draw a line under it. If you don't want to do this now, that's fine. You can do this for homework. I've got some other homework for you. But we named some of our fears, and some of our fears we can't control, right? We can't control the spread. We can't control other people getting it. But what we can control, I can control washing my hands. I can control getting enough sleep. I can control entertaining myself. I can control who comes into my house. I can control staying home. Those are all things. Absolutely. You can go outside. You have control over that, right? So those are all things that you have control over. So I encourage you to do this exercise. This is something that my husband has talked to me about the entire time we've been married. Whenever I've gotten overwhelmed or upset about something, he's told me you can't control other people and the decisions they make. But you can control how you feel, and you do have control over some things. So worry about what you can control. Anyway, so just a little bit of self-help there. Again, I'm not a psychologist. Another thing, if you get outside of yourself and focus on caring for others, there's a link here for that. Call friends or family. Actually, send a written letter. It takes a little bit of time. People still get the mail. Or journal, not just electronically, but actually write down. It's very helpful mentally and physically. And another thing, so that's some homework for you. Um, think about how you can distract yourself and shake off some anxiety. And all these handouts are actually from the Stress and Anxiety Center from the CDC. So again, these are things you could share with your patrons, with your family. Take an online class. You're doing that right now. There's also so many things. I'm going to share some Facebook groups with you later where people are posting things all the time. And also there's a couple other things where you can get educational resources. So think about things that you can do to distract yourself. The other thing is, recently the other day I worked on my closet a little bit because the weather has drastically changed in Alabama. But nobody wants to do this, but think about, maybe working on your taxes, getting things together, um, update your resume, right? Some people might need to do that. And it's a good time to do that because you don't usually update your resume until you're looking for a job, but why not do it now when you have some time? Exercise. Exercise is so important. You can do a lot of things from home. There's free videos on YouTube. A lot of the health places are offering things for free that they didn't used to. Go through your clutter, declutter during this time. There's a really, I don't do it enough, but there's a great sense of satisfaction when you're able to go through things. And if you do need to talk to somebody, if you don't have a counselor, this is a disaster distress helpline set up from the Department of Health and Human Services. You can just call or text them. Don't feel like you have to hold it all in. You can definitely call and talk to a professional. And there's a lot of reasons not to panic. We don't see a ton of here's great news about coronavirus, but there is some positive news that you can take away from this. We know what it is. It's been identified. They've been able to test for it, right? They know what it is. They know how to detect it. The new cases are slowing in China and Italy. Those are some things to keep in mind. So it is going to slow eventually here as well. Not in the immediate future, based on some of the predictions that are out there, but at some point we will have some slower numbers. Also, there's so much more testing available now than there used to be, and so those numbers are also going up because testing is available. People recover. A lot of the cases are mild. Not to take away from all the deaths. It's just way too many in my opinion, but that's just part of life, unfortunately. But a lot of the cases are mild, and a lot of people do recover. A lot of the symptoms appear to be mild in children. You can wipe the virus clean with some alcohol wipes, or a mixture of Clorox and water. Those are things that can happen. You can think that the scientists, the medical professionals, they are out there and they're on it globally. They've produced a ton of articles. They're looking at vaccine prototypes. There's 8 projects right now, and there's also 80 clinical trials. So people, I mean, there is some good news. And in fact, just on Friday, Abbott Laboratories announced that they now have a new test that gives a result in about 5 minutes and negative results in 13. So they're mass producing those. Also, President Trump signed into law the stimulus bill, so people who need it the most should be seeing money into their checking accounts. And then, like I said, there's tons of free things out there right now in terms of libraries and organizations that are out there that can help right now too. So 10 reasons not to panic. And again, not to make light of this, I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, if we do what we need to do, things will be okay. I'm not saying to make light of it at all, but I'm just trying to figure out a way to share the facts so we don't all panic. You know, we still have to remain vigilant. Just like Martin Luther King says, I think this quote is true today as well. We have to, you know, think about the challenge and remain vigilant. Okay, so a few hoaxes. I'm going to go through these real quick, and then I want to share Snopes with you really quickly. So this is a way to look at some of the hoaxes that are out there right now. Snopes has like, I think 9 or 10 categories. Another one is All Sides. It takes the news from the left, the center, and the right about the coronavirus. And all these sites I'm showing you are good for now for the coronavirus, but they're also good for other sites in the future when you're trying to check facts. Also, Fact Check is another site you can go to. They look at, again, political news and try to say, hey, this is true or not. Like I mentioned earlier, the World Health Organization has about 50 of these, and they call them Mythbusters. They're all graphics that you can share with people. So taking a hot bath doesn't prevent coronavirus. You know, spraying alcohol or chlorine all over your body kill the coronavirus, not a good idea. So there's like a ton of different Mythbusters that you can look at through the World Health Organization, and they're all downloadable. PolitiFact, they have, again, like just a page full of different claims. They have a pants on fire setting over here. If you look on the right hand side for Facebook, that somebody posted on Facebook, there is no COVID-19 virus. And so each one of these you can click on, not on this slide, but on their website, and it'll give you, hey, is your time short? This is why this is misleading, or this is why this is false. And they also have the credentials of the people that are doing the fact checking. NewsGuard is an organization. They have a webinar that they did recently. It's listed at the end of my presentation. And they collect news, they collect websites of places that are posting false and misleading information on the coronavirus. Pointner is kind of a website for journalists, but they also have this database where they've checked a bunch of the facts, and they say, hey, this is why this is misleading. This is why this is false. For instance, holding your breath can test for coronavirus. That's false. And again, it'll ask you to click to read more. You'll see they've got different fact-checking organizations that they've used for these different articles and facts. And then the next one, well, one of the ones I mentioned here is AFP. And AFP is a news source, but they also have a fact-checking site. And AFP, I'd heard this in the news or something about gargling with warm water would help kill it. And I thought that's kind of weird. It seems like that would be off. But and it is because it's not gonna. It's false. It's not gonna kill it. It might help your sore throat, but it's not going to kill the coronavirus. And so they also do fact checking. Also, the Department of Defense. I haven't found this yet, but they're supposed to put up a Mythbuster. And so one of the biggest fears that people have is that the National Guard is going to be called out to police quarantine, and that's not going to happen. And so there's also a lot of conspiracy theories, depending on the Defense Department, and that somebody created this virus, all kinds of things. And so they're supposed to put up a Mythbusters page, but I haven't seen it come out yet. The best thing we can do to combat a lot of these hoaxes and misleading information is to share the facts about COVID-19. It doesn't discriminate based on ethnicity, age, how much money you have, if you're famous. It's not. It's a virus. It's indiscriminate. It's the immediate risk of becoming seriously ill is thought to be low. Again, this is a handout you can get from the CDC. Um, yeah, hot drink, no, it's not going to kill it. I mean, it might help your throat. Um, a hot toddy or something might help your throat and your mindset, but it's not going to help get rid of it. They say that's false. And that's also one of the myth busters on the World Health Organization. I'll see if I can find that one when we look at Snopes in just a second. There's things you can do to stay healthy, of course. We've talked about that. And then knowing what the symptoms are. Okay, so these are some of the sites right here, and I'm going to show you Snopes in just a second. So let me share my screen with you, and you can look at this while you're waiting. Okay, so this is Snopes. So again, all these sites that I just mentioned are kind of automated help. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, it's great to have it. So this is Snopes, and like I said, they have about 10 different categories here. They've got prevention and treatments, origin and spread. Let me click on prevention and treatments number 2, and let's just see if there's anything about a hot drink. Vitamin C doesn't cure it. And they will have things that are in the news if it's not false. So I had read this recently that you lose your sense of smell and taste as an early sign. And so that's kind of being debated in the news. Let's see if there's anything about I don't see anything about that specifically having a hot drink, but I think I've seen it before. So again, they've got tons of categories. If you click on one, let's see if we click on this one. Can you get a free coronavirus test by donating blood? And a lot of the sites that I showed you, just kind of real quickly, they all kind of do a similar breakdown where they tell you the claim, whether it's false or not, and they'll tell you the origin of the information or misinformation. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to talk to you about what do you do if it's not automated? How do you find ways to evaluate sources? Give me just a second and I'll be right back. So I inserted this word librarian because I felt like Hemingway was talking about us, that we have this built-in automatic detective sense being a librarian. And so, yes, the automated stuff is great. However, we still have to do it the old-fashioned way and look at the article itself. Um, so, there's things called verification and fact checking. And so it's basically the scientific like approach to getting the facts and also getting the right facts. That's what we've done our whole career, right? False news has been in a hot topic for us lately, but really it's really nothing new for us. I mean, we've seen things that you click on and it's an ad or it's satire or it's fake. It's obviously fake, and sometimes you can tell. We have those skills. It's nothing new though. I mean, it's been around since Octavian and Mark Antony, up to recent Pizzagate. So it's not a new problem. There's some terms here that you've probably seen: clickbait, where people try to get you to click on an ad to a particular web page, and then it's misleading. Hoax, we've talked a little bit about. Misinformation, filter bubble. Thing about filter bubble is that's when you log into Google or Facebook and everything's kind of curated for you. And so we need to be careful because we need to look at multiple news sources that don't just support our view. So that's something to think about. So just a quick question in the chat box. And of course, I'm going to tell you why I think this is true. But why are we the best ones to fight this misinformation? Not just about coronavirus, but about misinformation in general. So go ahead and type in the chat box why you think that we're the best people for this. We can offer facts, definitely. And I'm going to keep going while you guys chat, and I'll try to catch up with you too. We know how to evaluate information. We've done this our entire careers. This new stuff about coronavirus is no different. We can educate people with information literacy. We're advocates for skepticism. Uh, we're good at, yes, verifying info, a place to get information. Again, we can partner with other organizations. We know how to approach the truth online. We can help people with that. We've got research guides and handouts and activities, and we're data experts and we're trusted, absolutely. This diagram just kind of struck home for me, and I don't know about you guys. Again, it's another statistic you'd have to examine, but 89% of people get news from either news websites, apps, or social media. So they're out there, and they don't realize what they're looking at, and they don't have skills to evaluate it. So that's another reason that it's essential for us to help them. And then 1 in 4 people are sharing fake news. And why does this matter? Why do we care? Because people deserve the truth. We all deserve the truth. It can destroy your credibility if you share information that's not true. It can hurt you or a lot of people, especially right now. People are getting news and not examining it. And the thing about there's an ingredient in fish food that can help. Supposedly, people are testing it to prevent the coronavirus. Well, if you don't look at all the information and you take that fish food and get sick, it's going to hurt you. So you're not looking at the total truth. You don't have those skills to evaluate, and the truth can benefit you. If you're looking at, hey, this is the newest vaccine for coronavirus. Here's the facts behind this article. Then you're gonna get the right information, and it can help you. Also, kids K through 12, college students, they have trouble distinguishing what is actually a real article, which is kind of scary. So we need to keep educating. We're in the perfect role to do that. Real quickly, I mentioned earlier there's about 5 different ways you can look at this. This is from the IFLA, but basically you're looking at the source, you're reading beyond the click, you're looking at the author, what supporting sources they have, you're checking the date, you're checking to see if it's a joke. You can also ask other experts if you work in a library that has subject matter experts. And you also need to think about how you feel about things. Are you against this because of your own personal views? So that's just one way. Another way is, this is my favorite one for kids. It's called Escape Junk News. But this doesn't work just for news. This just works for information in general. So this is a fantastic way to approach it for kids. Also, more of an academic nature. This is called the CRAP test. It's been around forever. You can look at that. It talks about currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. And then this is new, kind of on my job right now, where I do a lot of editing and there's a journalist kind of perspective. And this is a guide to identifying content for emergency coverage and how you can verify images and video. Also, there's a kind of a checklist here for looking at epidemics that I think is a fantastic new addition to this. Things we've talked about already about looking at statistics, double check the numbers, different things like that that I think are very important. In terms of getting to the good news, this is a media bias chart. Take it for what it's worth. Again, they've done a lot of evaluation on the news, tried to look at mainstream news that was original fact reporting, as opposed to, kind of skews liberal or skews conservative. And they've tried to find sources and kind of rate them based on the news sources that are out there. So if I just kind of expanded this, and if you look at the top ones, AP News, NPR, ABC News, if you look down, BBC, The Economist, The Washington Post, they're kind of gets a little bit not so good, not as great. But so just really quickly, these are some of the sources I look at. They all have social media versions. Each one of these has a newsletter you can sign up for coronavirus. And so remember how I said earlier, find a few trusted news sites and stick with them and don't get every single update. That's kind of what I tend to do. Towards the end of the day, I'll look at the numbers, of course, from Johns Hopkins, but I'll also see if there's anything in the news that would be helpful for me, my family, to share with you guys. And so these are some of the sites that I go to. And I would add now that Newsbreak app. I think that's kind of helpful as well. There's some strategies for checking websites, and this is outside of everything that we've already done. There's Whois and Spy on Web, and what they do is they actually take the actual URL and see who owns it and different things like that. Also, Spy on Web is another one. So this is CNN, so you can see it looks a little bit more reputable. It doesn't have like 20 different sites that it's pinging off of. You can also want to make sure somebody's real in this time. Definitely want to check if somebody it says that they're a doctor and they're yes, there are definitely some scams, you guys. There's a webinar in my list of different scams that you need to be aware of. Again, also people coming trying to sell coronavirus tests. So again, you make sure somebody is real. So this is a Twitter feed you can make on this site right here. But you want to make sure the person is real, especially in times like every time, but also in times like this where we're looking at things with the virus. Also, you can look at different people checking sites. And again, this is outside of our directories, outside of checking degrees and different things like that. You can also, this is WebMe. And again, outside of Googling somebody, these are some sites that I thought were kind of interesting and helpful to see if somebody was real. White Pages, at some point you have to pay for, but you can get a lot of information. So you can see I'm there on that page, and you see how old I am and the people I know. So you can get a lot of information. Also, this is LinkedIn. I'm not logged in. I just did a brief search in LinkedIn. I was able to get a ton of information about myself. Again, you can be whoever you want to be online. I'm saying that you probably could fake a LinkedIn account, but it's just another way to kind of try to see if somebody is real. Also, you can fake the news and the weather, and there's sources here. This is a snowstorm that I posted about and said that I had to spend the night in the library. This is a post saying that, hey, I've got mountains in my backyard. So there's ways you can verify that. So if somebody posts, hey, I'm in India and the coronavirus is fine, and there's ways, and I'm surviving a tsunami. You can look at Weather Underground history, and you can also look at Google Earth. So the post about the snowstorm, that was true. I did spend the night in the library, and you can see from the Weather Underground history, there's precipitation. Unfortunately, in my backyard, I do not have any mountains. Wetumpka is very flat. So again, Google Earth can help you disprove or disprove things. Also, there's sites for checking people and images. Right now, people are putting all kinds of images up about the coronavirus. Some of them are doing fake videos. And so there's some sites you can use to check that. These are 3 of them. I'll go through them very quickly. Veracity, Google Image Reverse Search, and then TinyEye, which I really like because you can sort by the oldest. And so you can see this picture from Michelle Obama has nothing to do with immigrants. This Amnesty International YouTube viewer breaks the video down into image clips where you can also do an image reverse search. And this made this prove that this video where there was a bear chasing her when she was skiing was false. So just a real quick check, type in the chat box. If you need to go, please, I understand I have probably about 10 more minutes worth of sources about how to prepare libraries, how to show you how to prepare information, and how to provide services. But I understand if you guys need to go, it's running a little bit longer. But tell me how you might verify if this is this guy who's an expert in microbiology exists. What would you do? And we went through quickly a couple things you might use, but what would you do? White Pages, yeah, you could definitely see if he's in New York, right? Whois lookup, fantastic. One of the first things you might do is take that picture, right? What would you do with that picture? Yep. And if you took this picture in one of those sources, you would see that it was a stock photo of a lonely man in church. So this is definitely not him. Okay, so these are some training sites where you can get more information about media literacy, fake news, libguides that other libraries have created on fake news so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, or evaluating information period. They're all out there. And then a link that's kind of new to this verification handbook that's free. Okay, so what I want to do now, I'm just going to walk through this really quickly, and then I'm going to go live and show you some things. I've got 3 different things that I want to show you. I've got some information to help you prepare if you feel like you're not completely prepared yet. I've got some information on how you can how you can present information on COVID-19 to your patrons and family and different things like that. And then I've got information on kind of marketing what we do virtually and how there's some good Florida libraries as examples. So that's kind of what we've got to look forward to in the next 10 minutes. So just go through these really quickly. Again, you'll get a copy of the slides, but I've got some information about how libraries can prepare. Library Journal's got a ton of articles. There's some things from the Public Library Association. There's a resiliency guidebook. Some of these things that I link to actually have policy statements that you can kind of tailor to your library. There's also sites, this information for Oregon libraries and this information for Massachusetts libraries. What they do is they present information to help you, to help your library, not just information on coronavirus, but what your library can do, which I thought was fantastic. There's also ways to market. Um, Also, I know that I was going to try to make a list of Florida libraries that were closed and their status, like if you're still working behind the scenes, things like that. It just became too much for me. But what you could do if you have time is this library responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are asking people, it's a Google Doc, they're asking people to submit their library and their status. And so it's a really great list. And you can post your library there, and then everybody will know without not having to be a member of the FLA listserv. There's also somebody who's very positive right now in Connecticut, and something you need to think about. How are you going to reopen? How are you going to sanitize your materials? What might that look like? And a lot of these sites here, they're starting to talk about it a little bit. Everybody's kind of has cautious optimism that we will reopen at some point. So that's something to think about. Um, Also, there's a bunch of Facebook groups and social media. They're talking about how they can, still connect with people virtually, what ideas they have. The Sanity Matters. They're posting all kinds of different tips and advice. The Learning Librarians Facebook. There's a bunch of Facebook groups out there, so you don't have to find 50 million things yourself. I share those with you. Those are just a couple that I use when I look for things. So there's also resources for academic and school libraries, how you can train online. I did want to mention there is this amazing educational resources, and they've got a huge site where they've listed everything that vendors are doing for free, websites you can go to for kids, not just kids, but also adults. And there's a Facebook group for that. There's also a mini clearinghouse for school that 2 school librarians created. And then this is here where I was talking, I said later there'd be some sources about how to talk to about coronavirus to your kids. There's a couple sites here. And then there's also a video. Also, I wanted to share with you Florida Atlantic University has a fantastic guide on homeschooling. If you're working full-time from home and homeschooling, my hat is off to you, but they have a lot of free sites and different things like that. Zoom announced that they're offering their services for free for K through 12 schools, so if you want to check that out. Also, I'm going to talk to you about, again, how do you present information on coronavirus without reinventing the wheel. So I'm going to talk to you about that. Then really quickly, I wanted to talk to you. So how can you offer virtual services? That was one of the questions in the beginning. And I don't think it's something we have to reinvent. These are things we're already doing. All the Facebook groups I'm looking at, they're not struggling. They're saying, hey, this is what I did. But it's more reminding the public about what we do. Like we have a library chat, we have ebooks, we have streaming videos. You can still have public events, like you could have a Downton Abbey tea, but make it virtual, make it through FaceTime Live. Take advantage of your FaceTime, your Facebook Live or your YouTube videos if you can't have something live. Promote the Florida Electronic Library. I mean, your taxes pay for that, and that's something I think we need to keep promoting, that we have these resources. Have a Facebook Live streaming story time. Ask a librarian. Have an online book club. Those are all things that we've done, really. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's just reminding people. Okay, So I want to show you that, and then I want to show you a couple of libraries in Florida that have done this. They're not just providing information, which is fantastic, but hey, how can we help you during this time with our resources? So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and then we'll be just about done. Give me just a second. Okay, so this first one is an example of, again, how libraries can get help, how you can help yourselves. It's from the NLM, National Library of Medicine, and there's some different things that you can present. That's a really good one. There is the pandemic preparedness from I believe it's the ALA. They've got a handbook, they've got resources for libraries, news, federal resources, resources from ALA, state and local resources. So it's got, official ALA statements that you could reuse for your library, press releases that you could adapt, different things like that. Another great one is PLA resources on COVID-19. They also list some training. I keep checking this to see what kind of webinars they're having so I can put it in my presentation for you. There is also the one I wanted to show you where other libraries are trying to help other libraries with this. So, hey, what can we do? So here's not just information on coronavirus for you, library in Florida, but there's also resources for responding. Like I just showed you some of those. There's webinars and training that they've listed. They have ways you can do remote library services, which is what I'm going to show you in a minute. But hey, ideas for remote library services. Make a video about how to access the library. Um, Patron tutorials. Try a dial a story option. Write a guide or make a video about how to set up your phone as a hotspot. So find a way to let patrons know how the library staff is okay. So different things that you can do and different things that are available for free. So things that other libraries are doing to help your library. This other one that I said was pretty optimistic because at some point we will reopen, right? This will be over at some point. So think about that. How can you reopen your library? So again, things helping libraries. I did want to show you real quickly. There is stuff for school and academic libraries. This is for higher education and academic librarians. There's some publications and webinars, some help there, some news, different things like that. There is also another one for academic libraries. This is from Alta, and it talks about how to support online courses and other resources that you can do to help. Which is real. I mean, not librarians have always been teachers, but especially in academic where you're sometimes part of a course. I did want to show you this one here. This is the homeschooling guide. You guys hear me okay? This is the homeschooling guide that's from Florida Atlantic University where they try to present free stuff. So again, another resource for your library possibly. And this is a fantastic resource. I don't know who started it, but if you only need kind of one site, you don't want to go to 50 different things, 50 different Facebook groups. This is sites and different things uh, from people who have kind of crowdsourced this about things that you can do with your kids, things you can do as an adult. For instance, these 12 museum tours, I've seen that everywhere. Library of Congress is doing stuff, and this is all free right now. Another site, just one second, sorry about that, is I wanted to show you is if you do have to present information. So now we're switching from things to help libraries. This is to help you present information. So if you needed to do some sort of guide on information where you need to present a guide on coronavirus, this is a site you can go to and you can get a ton of research guides on all different libraries. You can search for it by library. So for instance, if you wanted to get a coronavirus guide that's kind of aimed toward a public library, so what you can do is you can look at this LibGuide, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you're trying to present resources for people. So this is an actual research guide from a public library, so it might help you present resources to people. So I just have a couple more sites. So what I want to do now is kind of switch to some examples of, hey, not only do we have coronavirus information, this is what it is, this is how you can treat it, in terms of social distancing and washing your hands, but hey, how can we help you while you're at home? So just want to show you a couple of examples from Florida that I think are fantastic. This first one, give it just a second, is I'm sorry, this isn't from Florida. This is just another library. This is a guide, an example of a way you could do things to present coronavirus information. So let me show you what Florida can do. I've got some really great examples from Florida about how you can provide help. So for example, this is very simple. This is the University of Central Florida. They've said academic resources during COVID-19 situation. So here's our plan. Here's how you can get help from the library. Another site that I really like is, it's another academic library, is the University of South Florida. And what they've done here that I really like is, here's how we're going to continue services during this time. And then also here's a hub of information on COVID-19. So they have a guide on their services that's going to come up in just a second. How you can get library support for instruction, how you can request items, different things like that. And then if we go back, they also have a really good hub of information on the coronavirus. And what they've done that's kind of cool is they have included the stats again, but also they've included a lot of the social media feeds. It might take a second to load here. So you can kind of get, I may have to come back to that later, that you can get, oh, here it is. So you can get information from the different counties and different things like that, which I thought was really interesting. One other one, I want to show you a public library really quickly, is the Hillsborough County Public Library System. I love this graphic. They're saying, hey, we're closed, but you can visit the library from home. We're open for you 24/7, learning and fun for all ages. So I thought that was a fantastic way to kind of promote the services that they have. And then one last one is the Borland Library. It's a medical library, and they've done kind of the same thing. They've said, hey, our doors are closed, but our services continue. And hey, we also have information on COVID-19. So it's just kind of a pitch to make sure that, we have all this information that's out there. We have these hoaxes. We have this overwhelming deluge of information on coronavirus. Your libraries are still here to help you. And by the way, we still have fun stuff too during this time. And then I just want to show you one last thing in terms of PR. This is something that Alabama libraries put out, and it's talking about libraries' online treasure trove shine during shutdown. So it may merit making a blog post or a Facebook post on, hey, this is what we can do for you. Here's our library consortium. These are all the things that you have available for you right now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're just about done, and I just want to go through one more thing with you, and that's some training that I'm going to leave with you. So just one second. And if you have any other libraries that you can send me to that are, I've tried looking, but if you have any other libraries that you think are great examples of providing information on COVID-19 or doing, hey, here's our services, how we can help you right now, please let me know. I'd like to share them with everybody. Okay, so last but not least, there are some training available. The World Health Organization has training all the time for decision makers. It might be helpful for somebody at your library to get that. Also, There are a couple of upcoming ones. There's one on April 2nd about working from home. There's one on copyright. There's one on scams. Remember we talked about some of the scams that were coming out. There is managing stress and anxiety for the public libraries. Those are upcoming. And then I'm going to leave you with these, but there's about 15 that are recorded or will soon be recorded that might be helpful to you. And so these are some of those. And if you have any specific questions, please let me know. I think moving forward, again, just make sure we're cautiously optimistic. We use some of the strategies we talked about today for evaluating information. We check our facts. We consider multiple resources, not just ones that support kind of how we think about things. Be skeptical. Verify as much as we can. And be sure to share these tips and tricks for how to evaluate information with our patrons. And hopefully one day soon, our libraries will be open. If you have any specific questions, I've had people contact me afterwards about my daughter's a nurse and she has an underlying condition. What are some of the employment things that can be done? Or what are some resources for this or that that can help my friend? Please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm sorry we went a few minutes over. I keep adding to this every time, but hopefully there's some sources that will help. And if there's anything I can do to help you personally, please let me know. And I pray that you all stay healthy and safe and that I
Thank you
get
for
to
that
talk to you
very
again
informative
soon.
webinar,
Thank you
Dr.
very
Rollins.
much.
I had received feedback from a couple of students who took an earlier one and they said it was great and they weren't wrong. And also, thank you to our American Sign Language interpreter, Deb McLean, as always. And you will be receiving a link to the recording, the PowerPoint slides, and some of the links that we discussed during class. I want to thank all of you for being here, and I appreciate you spending your time with us. I want you to please be safe, and I want you to enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to stop the recording now, but if you feel like typing something into chat number 5, please do so. We'll stay.
Thank you, Cindy. And again, thank you, Deb, for being here. And thank you both so much, everybody, for attending. Again, like I said, if you have any specific questions,